All right, guys, today I would like to talk about Genesis 1. I think this is kind of an interesting topic because this is one of the chapters in the Bible that tends to get a lot of criticism from atheists and naturalists and things of that nature. So I just want to see if I can clear a few things up. Now, of course, one of the biggest debates with this particular chapter is if it's speaking literally, or like if each day is literally one 24-hour period, or if it's talking in terms of ages, because of course in the Hebrew yom could mean a few different things as far as like time goes. I'm not going to get into any of that stuff today. I just want to talk about one thing in particular, because it seems pretty clear to me that what is described in Genesis 1 is a special creation. Because of course one of the biggest objections that you hear from atheists is that, well, the sun was made on the fourth day, and that doesn't make sense because it had already been 3 days, and the Earth's got to rotate around the sun and this and that. And from a naturalistic perspective, that seems like a fair objection. But I would just like to point out that if what is in Genesis 1 is true, then what you see God creating things merely by his word. He's not using the natural laws to create things, because during that time he was, creating the natural laws, so that wouldn't really make sense. So I think if you look at it from a perspective of that, if this is true, if it really was a special creation, well, then of course, it's not going to be in such an order that would make sense with the natural laws, because the natural laws didn't yet exist. Genesis 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So that means before that, there wasn't anything. There was God, but, there were no laws of physics or laws of gravity. It was, it didn't exist yet. So I don't really see an issue with that, as long as it's from the perspective that this actually was a special creation, and God wasn't using the natural laws to create things. He was using his own power, his omniscience. Now, of course, you can say, well, I don't believe that, and you can challenge that if you want, but I don't think what you can do is try to criticize it in such a way that would make sense with natural laws, because of course, we're talking about God, and if this chapter is true, then he wasn't using natural laws. He was using the power of his word. Now, of course, we don't really completely understand how that works. It is based on faith, but we can see things that make sense with that, especially if you consider things that seem to be irreducible complexities, that it all had to come together all at once. Otherwise, how would it work? Natural laws can't really explain that either. But I just kind of wanted to clear that up. So I'm not really going to get into the other stuff as far as young Earth versus old Earth. Just from the simple perspective that when you read this chapter, if this really is a special creation, then of course, it's not really going to make sense with the natural laws, because God was creating the natural laws. So I don't feel like that's a really sound objection to make. When people make that kind of objection, it's just like when people ask, well, who created God? And of course, the whole argument for God is that he's an eternal being. So no one created him. Now you can say, well, I don't believe that. And if you want to argue it like that, that's fine. But I don't see how you can ask the question, well, who created God, if the argument for God is that he's an eternal being. Just like I don't think it's a fair argument to make against Genesis 1, where you're trying to say, well, this doesn't make sense with the natural laws. Well, of course it doesn't make sense with the natural laws. We're talking about a special creation. That this was the initial creation of everything. And it's not talking about it from a natural process, where lower life forms evolved into larger life forms. The premise of Genesis 1 is that God created everything mature, the first plants that came about, there wasn't a seed planted. He actually spoke them into existence, just like with man. When it describes it in chapter 2, that God formed him of the dust of the earth, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So everything that is described is a special creation. It's not talking about starting from lower life forms and rising to bigger ones, like evolutionists believe. So I think when you consider that, it makes a lot more sense. So you can't, it's kind of hard to explain it from a naturalistic perspective, with making sense with everything that we see now, the natural laws and such. But what we see now is everything, happening by natural causes, of course, but this chapter is talking about where God was putting all of those laws and everything in place. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, it makes a whole lot more sense. And it is based on faith. So it's not something that's really necessarily going to make sense when you try to put it in a box and you have an issue with him creating, the sun on the fourth day. And there are things in the Bible that I think make a lot more sense regarding that particular topic, because the Bible does say that God is the light. And of course, if we're talking about God, if he really is omniscient or powerful, I don't see there being an issue with there being 3 days before the sun was created. We're talking about a special creation. But that's pretty much all I wanted to go over with you guys today. And I just kind of wanted to clear that up a little bit, because I think when you look at it from that particular perspective, it makes a whole lot more sense. Well, thank you for your time, and please feel free to subscribe. Thank you.